Wrecks from sunken ships often provide a clue to understanding ancient cultures. Today, approximately 85% of all trade is carried out by sea, and in the ancient world, this percentage was even higher. However, these ships transported not only material values, but also culture, and you can trace not only trade routes, but also the real history. Those treasures that have been discovered are subject to modern laws. More modern wrecks, such as the Spanish treasure caravels and gold rush naval vessels of the 18th and 19th centuries, can be claimed as the cultural heritage of the successor to the sunken ship. However, most ancient shipwrecks in international waters do not have one, and are therefore considered no previous owner. Hi friend, you are on the Kurtop channel. The very first coins of Southeast Asia. In 1998, a diver near Indonesia accidentally discovered the remains of an ancient Arab ship, the Dhow. Thanks to this find, scientists gained new knowledge about the early trade routes. In subsequent years, archaeologists raised from the bottom about 60,000 undamaged ceramic objects with a total weight of 25 tons. The finds testify to the longest sea route that mankind used even before European expansion in the 17th century. In addition, archaeologists have also found a single golden piloncillo in the wreckage. Piloncillo in Spanish means lightweight. It is the earliest form of precious metal currency in the islands of Southeast Asia. These small engraved coins, composed of locally produced metal, weighted between 0.5 and 3 grams of high-quality gold. Since the coin almost certainly comes from Indonesia, this discovery tells of the early trade routes along the Silk Road that connected the Indonesian kingdoms and the early Arab states. Heavy machinery from ancient times. Ancient societies had access to high technology, and as an example to support this assumption, we recall today an interesting gold object that was discovered in Panama in the 1920s. At first, the object known as a bulldozer or zoomorphic pendant from Panama attracted very little attention. It has been nailed as nothing more as another Jaguar model. However, it was soon suggested that this might be a design for a heavy construction machine such as a steam shovel-like excavator. Suppose for a moment that the object is an animal, but why is it so flat and angular? The Jaguar's tail appears to be exceptionally strong and has two large cogwheels at the end. This artifact is only 4.5 inches long, however, it is covered with various mechanical devices. This prehistoric machine with claws and legs and a chain mechanism attached to cogwheels at its end, if built on a large scale, could be used as an earth-moving excavator. Was the zoomorphic pendant from Panama created as a reminder of what the ancients once saw? Piltdown fly. If you look closely at the piece of Baltic amber in this photo, you can see a perfectly preserved fly inside. This specimen is kept in the London Natural History Museum. It is dated to the Eocene and is an absolutely unique fossil, not only because there is no another such find, but also because there are very few fossilized flies in general. Insects are rather poorly preserved. Many microscopes use incandescent light bulbs in their lighting systems, and some metal parts of the instrument get hot enough over long hours to fry eggs. As a rule, such parts are more dangerous for the scientists themselves than for their stone objects of study, but not in the case of amber. The priceless specimen is cracked. Frustrated and frightened, the researcher began to examine the crack and noticed a strange feature. The crack was too smooth. Upon further study, it turned out that the piece of amber consisted of two parts glued with resin, in the cavity between which a completely modern fly was laid. The story made it to the press, and the pseudo-fossil was quickly dubbed the Piltdown fly, after the Piltdown Man, another famous fossil fake of the early 20th century. Who faked the fly remains a mystery. The Piltdown fly has been fooling scientists for nearly 150 years, more than any other fake fossil in the history of science. Sheep from the flotilla of Peter I. One unusual find was made during the construction of the Nord Stream or Nord Stream gas pipeline, which haunts many countries. The discovered ship turned out to be a military transport ship from the flotilla of Peter I, which lay at the bottom of the Gulf of Finland. When investigating the object, underwater archaeologists from St. Petersburg determined that the ship was built in 1710 and was a military ship of the chock type made according to Dutch drawings. According to researchers of the deep sea, this ship was one of the fleet commanded by the Emperor of all Russia Peter I when he went to Finland in 1713 with the aim of conquering it. According According to underwater archaeologists, the wreckage of the warship is located at a depth of 54 meters in the place where the pipeline should come to the surface. Its length is 17 meters and lies on an even keel. The hull is badly damaged, the stern is practically absent, as are the planks. Most of the deck is missing. Inside the wreckage of the ship, archaeologists found valuable cargo and items of ship utensils, as well as glass decanters of English production. Also, while exploring the area for the presence of items belonging to the vessel, the divers found 4 more unknown vessels. According to archaeologists, other discovered vessels belong to the 19th, possibly the beginning of the 20th century. But as representatives of the search engine said, these ships are less valuable as the ship of Peter I because the Cholk is a ship that shows the history of the transition of shipbuilding in the Russian Empire. Therefore, representatives of the search engines, together with representatives of the Nord Stream project, are preparing a plan for lifting the ship to the surface. Cookware with 300 years of history. On the sea voyage with your own set, apparently 300 years ago they had no idea about traveling light. Moreover, only a wealthy person could afford to grab a couple of extra plates. And he did. The found items have several identification marks, 3 hallmarks, the inscription Henrik Lefrensen and the date 1694. 2 hallmarks indicate the material, tin, and the third, the coat of arms, more precisely a small circle in which, if you look closely, you can see the image of a 2-headed eagle. But this is not the coat of arms of Russia, as many might think. The 2-headed eagle rather speaks of Austrian origin. Judging by the surviving list of passengers, the dishes belong to a wealthy Caesarean named Hitler. In the wreckage of a merchant ship, only 3 plates and 3 spoons were found for different types of dishes. Probably the owner carried the entire set with him, but it was not possible to establish exactly how many details were there. The Archangel Raphael belonged to the Dutch merchant Herman Meyer. In October 1724, the ship sailed from St. Petersburg to Lubbock. According to the declaration of the port customs, it transported a minor cargo: lard, matting, linen yarn, and linen. A month and a half later, the sailboat got into freeze-up, was abandoned by the crew, and crushed by the ice. Corsican treasure from Lava Bay. This treasure is considered one of the most important archaeological finds. It provides unique evidence of Roman imperial coinage. The detective story has been dragging on for several decades. The first coins from this hoard were found in the late 50s near the southern Corsica in the Bay of Lava. Then the aureus and large gold medallions were secretly sold to private collectors. In 1986, 3 local divers discovered hundreds more of the highest quality Roman gold coins dating from the late 3rd century AD. The Corsicans dived after them several times and then sold them on the black market, claiming that the coins were their inheritance. This case came to the attention of the police. Divers began to spend a lot, suspiciously. The French government has declared that this submerged treasure is a maritime cultural property and belongs to the state. They confiscated any remaining coins and arrested the divers, along with 5 other related individuals. To this day, France is trying to recover the treasures the divers managed to sell. In 2005, 5 more people were arrested in Paris, and items worth up to 2 million euros were seized from them, including a gold cup, which is now in the Historical Museum of Marseille. This treasure, consisting of the coins of Galileus, Claudius II, Quintilla, and Aurelian, is evidence of a turbulent period in the history of Rome. There are a lot of counterfeits among the famous coins of these emperors, so the historical value of even a partially preserved treasure is very high. Now in museums there are 450 coins from the hoard. Researchers suggest that the hoard contained at least 1,400 coins. In addition, the French Department of Underwater Archaeological Research reports that the 30-kilogram gold statue, one of the greatest treasures of Roman antiquity, has been cut up and resold by smugglers. The oldest doorknobs. Many artifacts have been discovered in different parts of the world that, given the current paradigms, seem inconvenient for modern archaeologists. While iron pots, bronze vases, and ancient wheel prints are usually not much of a problem, there are several artifacts that have been discovered suspiciously deep in the ground, sometimes so much that they were covered with carbon. Unfortunately, due to the ambiguous nature of such finds, many of them were not taken into account before they were thoroughly investigated. Another interesting item of this kind was recently featured on the American Mystery History channel. And according to the author, The age of the brass handles he presented is as much as 300 million years. Although modern society has been taught that human civilization is now at its peak, many of the tools and technologies that we now consider to be our first achievements could have been discovered unimaginably long ago. It turns out that several brass doorknobs glued to a small coal seam date back 300 million years ago. If the tests for this finding are indeed correct, this could mean that humans have existed on Earth for much longer than scientists say. The objects found may not even belong to people, but for example to a lost civilization that preceded the human era. However, very often the dating of carbon-14 can give incorrect results, and the excavated objects may actually be from the 19th or 20th century. Write your comments about this, it will be interesting for me to read. And tell your friends about this video. Thanks for your views, bye everyone!